saw it last night, so the memory is pretty fresh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I watched it
Did
today
you,
too.
when you watched it last night, was that the very first time you watched it?
Yeah, that's my very first time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
I watched some of it today, but I've seen it before, but I only watched I rewatched maybe like half of it, and I was kind of working, so like I didn't pay attention. But
That's fine. Yeah, as much as you can remember.
Yeah.
And we might just fill in the details while we talk about like the
Yeah.
ending and stuff.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Yeah.
like I've watched all of Bong's movies except for his first one and then this one. So it's pretty interesting. So there's a lot of like techniques he uses in most of his films, and it's kind of interesting to see it in his like this is like his Netflix special, right? Like Okja.
Yeah.
Okja, yeah.
Yeah, so
It was
it's cool to
released in
see it.
Netflix first, I think.
Yeah.
Oh,
And-
damn! So you've seen like pretty much every one of his movies?
Yeah, I've seen every one of his movies.
Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could. I think we'll do like Memories of Murder. There's also like Mother, Host,
Mother,
and
yeah.
Parasite.
Host was one of the good ones.
Yeah, I
One of
think
the
his
best,
first
I
is like
think.
Polandis Dog or something.
Yeah, Polandis
I haven't
Dog.
seen that one,
Yeah.
but I hear it's pretty good.
Yeah, it was very, I don't know. I mean, we can talk about that after we watch this.
Yeah.
you know?
Anyway, so some things like I really liked when I was watching Okja is like the casting is pretty crazy. Like
Yeah,
you have
it
Tilda
is.
Swinton.
It is pretty crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, playing like the twins. You have Jake Gyllenhaal's character. Like
Yeah.
I've never seen him like
Yeah.
that wacky before.
Yeah.
Other than like Nightcrawler, where he's like super creepy in that one. But this one was like,
Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking about that. I also thought about Nightcrawler. That's like kind of, somewhat similar, but I feel like he was like a little bit too over the top for my.
oh yeah,
I felt like he could have been slightly more subdued, and I don't like.
Oh,
It,
he
there were
was
just parts
more
where it was
subdued.
like way too much, and like it's not. I wasn't a fan of it.
Well, that's like if you consider like the tone of the entire film, it was kind of like he definitely stood out because he's like
Yeah.
way wacky, like too wacky.
Pretty weird.
Like he just.
But it also could just because like we know Jake Gyllenhaal so
Yeah,
well.
exactly.
You know, and it's like that's part of what messes up our perception of it. But yeah, and maybe that's why it bothered me.
He was mostly in like a lovey-dovey one or like a action kind of guy.
I mean, he's been in so much great shit. He's been in so much great shit. Like he does a lot of interesting work, but like, and I think that's why I'm just like so like kind of put off by, like, yeah, I mean, because like some like a lot of his performances tend to be very like tend to be a little bit more subdued. And yeah, but like you mentioned Nightcrawler, like that's a good example of when like, he was fucking creepy as shit in that one without being like that, right? Like
it
was in like a really, really controlled way. And he just felt like a cartoon here. And I get that's the point, but I just didn't like how extreme he went.
Yeah, that's totally fair. So Jake Gyllenhaal, and then there's also Steven Yeun, right?
Steven
kind
Yeun.
of like this charming, like comedic relief.
Yeah,
this is like my first.
Like, yeah.
Keep going. Yeah, you're gonna. Oh, this is my first like film or like I haven't seen Walking Dead either, so.
What?
Like, first
you should watch Burning.
Burning?
What's it?
Have you seen Burning?
Burning? No, I haven't.
So Burning, he's in Burning, and it's also a Korean film. I'm blanking on the director. Hold up.
It's Lee Chang-dong.
Yeah, Lee Chang-dong. He's super good in it. Burning is hella good. I think it might still be on Netflix. It went off, but you should definitely watch that one.
Okay.
Seems like he has a more serious role in this one, just judging by like.
In Burning, yeah, he's like it's like he's much more like kind of like unsettling. It's really, really good, and it's interesting because he like part of his background just as a person and an actor
Mm-hmm.
like happens to play really well into his character in the movie because
Mm,
his background as an actor. I mean, you guys would also know this better because I don't know how clean his Korean sounds when he's speaking Korean.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
But like, I mean, does it sound like pretty good?
It
I've
sounds like
seen him talking in Conan show, and it looked pretty
mhm.
normal. But I think in Okja, I think he just exaggerated it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I wonder how much like how like perceptible his accent is because in Burning, his character is kind of mysterious
Mm,
and there's
Mm.
sort of like an American air about him, but you don't really know. And part of the sort of like mystery of the movie is like who the fuck is he?
yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
I mean the whole film is in Korean, obviously. Like it's a Korean film, but like I think part of the fact that he's like an American actor who is American, like
Mm-hmm.
just happens to lend itself to that mystery, but I just can't tell because I don't know how legit his Korean sounds. I mean, in that one, you
Yeah.
can talk out very clearly.
You can
Yeah.
actually tell like Albert was saying like in his Conan like skits like you can kind of tell the accents there.
Yeah,
He's not like fully fluent as a native would be.
Yeah, but in
yeah,
Okja
That's pretty
though,
interesting in Burning. Yeah.
in Okja he was like some like LA second gen Korean dude. I was like,
Yeah, like
oh, okay. Anyway. Yeah, I think the cast was like pretty
Mhm.
packed and like pretty
Yeah,
yeah,
good.
definitely.
I think
Like
people
Tilda
just
Swinton
love
is
Bong, dude.
yeah. Tilda Swinton, Paul Dano is really good.
Yeah.
mm.
Um, who else was there?
Is
Uh,
Paul Dano Gus Fring?
What was that?
Or who's
he's
Paul Dano? Which
the eco guy, Alf leader.
Oh, he's like the head of Alf. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, he was in There Will Be Blood, right? I think I remember
yeah.
him.
There will be
Yeah.
Yeah,
blood.
yeah.
It's really
Uh
good.
yeah, really good performance. Yeah, there was a Gus Fring in this film. He didn't really have like we
Oh
could talk
yeah,
about his character in a bit, but yeah, it was interesting to see him.
Yeah.
yeah. He's good. Something that I just learned recently. I don't know if like Yoon. I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you have you seen Do the Right Thing?
Oh, this is Spike
Yeah, Spike Lee's
yeah,
film.
Spike Lee's film. I have not. I think I saw a little bit, but
Yeah, you should watch it.
is
I
that
just it's like
mhm.
it's just such a great film, and obviously it's like
Mhm.
it's like super relevant to what's going on right now. But
Mhm.
I mean, I guess it doesn't matter if you haven't seen it. But like, there's just I've very recently learned that like there's a character in it that's like kind of memorable, and like it's him, this Gus Fring,
Mm.
I think Giancarlo Esposito, and it's just like such a bizarre twist because you see him as like this really young kid in like Brooklyn. But anyways, random.
Yeah,
But
that's
you do the right
interesting.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll check it out because I'm a big fan of the actor. He
Yeah,
has such
yeah,
a
he was
cool
so
vibe
good
about
in
him.
Breaking
Mhm.
Bad.
Yeah, exactly. I'll check it out.
Yeah. Even the Korean ones were pretty good too. Like they're
Mm-hmm.
pretty known. Like Byun Hee-bong is like one of the
Jennifer.
top actor
Yeah.
Which
in
ones?
Korea. The
This is
the
the
the grandpa,
grandfather
the
of
Oh,
grandpa.
really? He's like really
Yeah.
well known.
And
yeah.
also Uncle Mundo.
Yeah, Uncle Munda.
Yeah, he's also pretty like top tier.
Mm-hmm.
The guy who works at Miranda Court
Mm-hmm.
and introduces whatever Jake Gyllenhaal to the Okja. He's the
Mm.
guy. Even the
Yeah, yeah.
girl, she started pretty early in actor life, I
Mm.
guess, and
Oh,
she's pretty
really?
good. Yeah,
Is she in like other stuff?
I
Has she been
think
in like other
so.
stuff?
I think so. She does
Mm.
movies, I think.
Mm.
I forget. I mean, I don't really know where she was, but she has been there for like she's not that new of an actor, you know.
Mm.
I see.
You
Yeah, she was pretty good.
yeah.
First piece I saw her in. Like I sometimes think about like because these actors and actresses are basically all just all CG, and when they interact with it, it's like I think a different kind of acting right there. So it's
Yeah.
interesting to see like these actors like interact with some CG objects.
Yeah,
um,
Yeah, totally.
yeah. Yeah.
man. No, keep saying
Yeah,
whatever you were
I was
saying.
just gonna like kind of bring it back to like Okja and like maybe just bring up some of the things I noticed that were pretty interesting. Like plot wise, I was actually taken by surprise when like they kind of reveal their actual motives and intentions, like the Miranda Corps
Yeah,
of like
Okay,
using
so
this.
I don't remember.
Oh yeah, I could kind of explain as I go. They basically shipped out I think like 11 of those super pigs, different countries,
yeah.
to grow for like 10 years, and they
It's
had
in the
this
intro.
contest or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah, but like I initially thought like it was legit, like they're just
me too,
this
man.
is yeah. But it turned out to be a complete PR stunt, and they're just basically like lab creating all of these creatures.
Yeah,
So
the lab
nothing's like
scene, man.
natural.
Oh, is
Oh,
that so? Like when we see, I remember seeing like basically like a massive sort of factory farm of
Yeah,
all
not
these.
even that. Like before that, in the lab, there were just
yeah,
cages of similar animal was like bump on their
Yeah,
back
so
and
it's not like
stuff.
they were like naturally
hmm
26 or whatever that happened to be
yeah,
humanely like
Yeah, it's eco-friendly and all that. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
crazy.
It's like pretty like detailed in that sense. I know like because like if it was some like random movie, it would just stop there. But like I like the kind of twist they had and like the business motives made it somewhat realistic. And this seems like a PR stunt that you'd probably see like in today's world, where like you have like this moral like compass that's completely broken by just business uh you know
Business
business
model.
needs, yeah, models. So that was pretty interesting. Like I kind of like that, and Bong does this a lot with most of his films. Like he makes it pretty realistic in that sense,
Yeah,
that it's like believable.
Yeah,
And the
I
plot
definitely like feel the like
mm-hmm,
corporations that are capitalizing on some sort of like what they purport to be like a moral good.
yeah.
mm-hmm,
Ultimately,
mm-hmm,
just because I think I especially feel it just feels so much realer. Or I mean, I
mm-hmm,
think we kind of know that corporations are ultimately driven by profit, but I
mm-hmm,
think it feels especially stark right now because of like COVID and then like
Mm,
BLM stuff. Because it's
mm-hmm,
like you see all these like
mm-hmm.
corporate brands that are like pandering to that type of shit, and
Yeah,
it's like
yeah,
obviously
uh-huh,
disingenuous.
mm-hmm,
mm.
And yeah, like I think that's true. Like now I think about like the twist here is like interesting because it's like you kind of know that like even if they were trying to be like, well, we're just trying to solve world hunger, that like there is some level of like
mm-hmm.
um
Compromise
Like
yeah,
and
but like
ideal in
yeah,
the real world.
mm-hmm,
yeah, and it feels like even yeah, I don't know. It's just like no matter what, like corporate capitalism at its like even with the right intentions is
mm-hmm,
always going to be based on like some form of exploitation.
Yeah,
mm-hmm,
because
yeah,
first of all, they need to make profit, and also they need to provide food for like bunch of people with like limited amount of land too,
mm-hmm,
which is
Yeah, when you
pretty
get to that
hard.
scale.
Yeah.
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 Nowadays, we
That
don't really have farmlands. I mean, we
mm-hmm,
do, but it's not as much, you know?
mm-hmm.
Most of the parts are like developed and all that. It's, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, let's just go over briefly about the storyline
The
since
plot, yeah,
Brandon,
sure, yeah.
like to remind Brandon.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to just make like just talk about kind of an outline of the plot then?
Um, it's like they basically this food company was saying, "Oh, we found this superb pig looking thing
Mm-hmm.
in Chile, I think." and they're like, oh, we're gonna give all the piglets to farmers all around the world, and we'll eat them after 10 years. That kind of stunt. And this girl comes in as a farmer. Basically, she raises this pig like a. She was basically like a friend, right? Okja was
exactly.
a friend of her, only friend of her, and they're like, "Oh, this is the best pig, so we're gonna take her into New York for a show and make babies." And this ALF, Animal Life Front or something, right? Liberation Front.
Liberation Front.
They are trying to free them and stop this corporation from exploiting this pig. And later on, they find out it was GMO, basically GMO pig. And Okja gets into a butcher shop. She almost dies, but the girl buys her out, and she brings her back. Basically, that's the basic storyline.
What if she? When you say she buys her out, what happens? I don't remember.
On the butcher shop, she goes there. Okja was almost,
gonna be slaughtered.
Yeah, slaughtered, and the girl bought her out with the money she got from his grandpa in the beginning.
The money she got from the grandpa? Oh, is it the?
It's the golden pig.
The golden...
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's so many things to talk about from the beginning.
Actually, the specific ending for this one is all the ALF. I'll just call them ALF. People are in that bus and they're trying to take down the sister Miranda.
Yeah, Nancy and
Nancy.
Somebody else. I think it was Nancy. Nancy is the bad one or the worst one.
Yeah, the older sister. So they just, I guess he's trying to portray this struggle or this fight is like always continuous and ongoing.
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as there's like Brandon mentioned before, with just capitalism itself, there's always loopholes to exploit it. It's just everyone's game, and you need that competitive advantage.
Yeah.
And once it happens, like morality kind of, the lines are kind of blurred, and so there's always this opposition side fighting, for moral causes, corporate. So I think that was kind of like the message, I guess, at the end. At least what I interpreted. Like Okja safe, but like what about all the
does
other
that
pigs?
matter? Yeah. It's just
or does this idea just expand to all other animals that would have livestock?
Yeah, I was just like, I don't remember. Like, I'm pretty sure that even though Okja gets saved, like all the other animals are still right to them, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and when I guess when I was saying also like exploitation, like I was even doing just like the literal like masses of like people, or in this case animals, that are like literally exploited. And, I mean, if you even just think about like fucking Jeff Bezos and shit like that right now, where it's like he's making like literally billions of dollars a day during the pandemic, and he's like unwilling to even like pay for his workers to have like reasonable like overtime or like PTO or whatever. I don't remember the exact specifics, but yeah. And I mean, I also know that like I'm interested to talk with Albert about all the implications here, specifically in terms of like animal violence and like factory farming and so, because I know Albert and I have talked about that a million times before, but this, like, I feel like this really, really, it basically shows exactly what happens.
Yeah.
In pretty much every source of meat that you consume. Not to be like, like moralistic about all this, because I happen to be vegetarian, but like it is interesting that he he basically does that whole thing that like people like shit on like our stereotype of vegans. Like Bong basically makes an entire movie about that, except it doesn't feel like that because it's a made up animal.
Yeah.
Exactly. No, that's a really good point. I think I kind of had the same idea. It made it like, you know, obviously it kind of looks like a pig, but like I think that mechanism that it's just a made up animal, I think that was pretty well done in
Pretty
that sense.
smart of him to do
Yeah.
that.
And
You know.
like I was getting this sense, like after I saw this film, it's like you could argue it is kind of for animal liberation, but it's not like necessarily that preachy. And the main characters in my idea wasn't necessarily like Okja or Mija. Although it shows kind of their arc and like them happily after living after.
Yeah.
But like all the other pigs are still there, and like it seems like most of his films are the characters are kind of the tools and mechanism to deliver some kind of like message he has. He might be like kind of unbiased, but uh, this one was actually like, although I said it wasn't like preachy, he was like, it did look like he's showing this like harsh reality of what's actually happening with livestock and domesticated animals.
Yeah. I
Seemed like
kind
it was
of
giving that message.
agree with you in that, you know, Okja and Mija isn't really the main character. I mean, the main story involves Okja and Mija, right? Them getting separated, them getting, you know, Mija trying to find Okja back and bring her back. That's the whole story, basically, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I want my friend back. I'm going on an adventure to find this animal of mine or my friend in her mind, right? And but then Bong does this where they he uses other characters to portray us in the movie basically.
Yeah, that's
They're
a good
like, oh,
point,
this
yeah.
is you, by the way. Do you see this cute little girl and the cute little animal just getting along? Oh, the side story, that's you guys. He's doing that basically in the whole entire movie. You know.
Sorry, so you think like you're saying that the viewer is. You're not saying. Are you saying the viewer is Mija?
No, Mija and Okja is just a
You're
main
saying that
story.
it's like not the person who's actually like trying to save the animal.
Yeah, we're one of them. We're either Alf, we're either people who just work for Miran Decor, or we're the people who's eating the super pig sausage on the festival. Basically, we just don't care. We just like,
or maybe the consumer.
yeah, like he shows us that so well within that main story. I think that's why it was like really, fun to watch.
Yeah.
I watched the second time and it was better because I can see, I can
like
focus on other characters basically. You know.
That's actually what was like so interesting to me about like, I mean, other people have said it before, but like how celebrated Parasite was by like the kind of like elite Hollywood institution, right? And like it obviously like swept the Oscars essentially, and like the irony was that like basically all these people who are like basically saying like Parasite is this masterpiece, like they are the rich that the film is basically advocating that we eat.
Yeah.
You know, it's like they're literally, I don't know, I just feel like a lot of those people were probably like clapping for the movie, not realizing that it was essentially criticizing
you guys.
People.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the funny thing. Like, I think he does this in all of his movie where he's like, "Oh, this is you." By the way, he always portrays the society in some way in any kind of setting, and he just, he just says, this is you. This is an uncomfortable truth, you know." but everybody just doesn't care. So I'm just gonna
Yeah.
put it in my movie. I think he does that all the fucking time. Like in Snowpiercer 2, there are like different classes. He shows everybody basically, you know, someone who struggles to go to the front, whatever, you know, someone who just wants to stay in their state, someone who just doesn't care about what goes on below them, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the way the reason he does it so well is he constructs those characters so well, and
Yeah.
like the emotions that they have, they're like watching all these characters, I kind of like relate to like small bits for all of them.
Yeah.
It's really cool how he does that. Like it's almost like character studies of each character and like at different situations. Kind of
Yeah.
see yourself there, yeah. So yeah, that's a pretty interesting point, yeah.
Yeah.
I like to think about that.
And another thing that I like about this movie is you show like the two sides of people too. I think good example was when Alf was you know, Alf put a camera on Okja's ear, right? And they were looking at, you know, oh my god, this pig is getting raped and we basically brought her here instead of rescuing Okja, the pig, right? And Steven Yeun was like, "Oh, actually, you know, the girl didn't agree to do this." You know, basically in the first half of the movie, there were, you know, their plan was to get Okja to the lab and put a camera on her so that they can record what's really happening in Miranda Core. And Paul Dano asked Mija, the little girl, "Hey, can you let Okja go to the lab so that we can let everybody know what Miranda Core is doing, right?" And Steven Yeun was the translator because Aldino doesn't speak Korean. And Mija says, "No, I want to bring this pig back to my house," basically. And Steven Yeun translates it wrong, or basically he just says, "Oh, she agrees." And then anyway, yeah, in that scene, Steven Yeun confesses to Paul Dano, saying, "Hey, she actually didn't agree to this," and Paul Dano is just like, "Oh my god, what the fuck? I'm gonna beat you up," you know. But Alf's credo was like, "Oh, we never hurt people," but this guy clearly just beats him up. Steven Yeun's just like bleeding everywhere. You know? I don't think
I sure remember the first time I watched it. I don't know if you guys noticed that, like after the credits, there's like another scene.
Yeah.
And like I guess they like I remember they like reunite or something, right?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. They basically, I think they have another mission, right? That they
Yeah.
go on in the little bus.
Yeah.
Like everyone's wearing masks.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, it definitely shows kind of like, even though there's this like Alf and you're kind of, you know, if it's simplistically or at least one dimensional, you just think of them as the good guys, but they
They're
they
people
might.
too, you know, like Bong just emphasizes that, you know, they go through stuff. They sometimes do wrong things and you know, they break up. But they still come back because they're friends. You know, that happens to us all the time too. Like, you know, we don't. Everybody has a motto, but like, not everybody, but some people has motto, but they don't follow by it like every single second, right? It's really hard to do.
True.
Yeah. And
yeah, I
Bong's
mean, I
just
think it was
like,
good just to like
yeah,
to add some level of like complexity to show their hypocrisy a little bit, because it's like you also don't want them to just be like the purely quote unquote like good guys or like heroes here, right? Because it's basically like those people are kind of like what you're saying, right? Those people are also can be like compromised in their own ways.
Yeah.
Or like, in this case it wasn't really like that, but some of the organizations or like that have these kind of morally elevated like motives, they might have some kind of underlying business, like
Yeah.
like
Be a PR
in
act. Could be
yeah.
just, I don't know. It's just it's everywhere. Like and Bong's just like, hey, you guys should realize this. Like they do this too, Yeah.
Actually, something that kind of bothered me when I was watching the film, and this is kind of messed up, but like Alfonso, the pig, and Okja's like love scene, right?
Yeah. Oh my god.
No, I was like not even about the context, but I was more bothered that they put that like fucking hard drive thing in the ear of Okja.
Yeah.
It's supposed to
The
film what
camera.
she sees.
Yeah.
But apparently what they kind of broadcast is like a frontal view of both of pigs, so it didn't make any sense.
Yeah, I
Like
mean,
technically. So I was just like bothered a little bit about that kind
they
of.
might have removed it after. Who knows?
Huh. Okay. Yeah, but that's it's like it wasn't really surprised, like I'm sure that was kind of like one of the mechanisms to like shock the audience, but I've kind of seen like these like slaughterhouse videos on YouTube of like how they treat these animals, and like they have these conveyor belts pushing like animals in line in this really thin corridor, just waiting for them to be slaughtered, and like they probably all kind of know that they're gonna die, but
Yeah.
yeah, like it kind of like it's a pretty good, like an accurate depiction of what actually happens. And like in some places, like in Mexico, like what they do is they just slit the throat of the animal and like let them bleed out.
Dude, they
So
do that everywhere, dude. They shoot their head and
It's interesting because like a lot. I mean, I can like I might personally argue that that's almost even more humane, because like in a lot of these slaughterhouses, I think they do a similar thing, except also they are like kept in conditions with all these other animals for like a long period of time.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, it depends on what animals, I'm sure, but like bred in certain ways, right? And like kept in just like the physical confinement, or like being deprived of sunlight, things like that, where it's like, yeah, like in Mexico, if they're doing that, in some cases, it's like that's obviously not pleasant either, but it's like at least in those situations, that animal might have at least just had a maybe like a normal life up until you know. But yeah, like totally, I think that it definitely feels like those kinds of videos, but basically made into like a film.
Yeah.
basically.
So that particular scene in like those slaughterhouses, rather than that being kind of like the thing that hit me, I guess, in this film is one thing that really hit me early on is so Mija's grandfather, when he tells Mija in like their house that they not sold off, but they sent away Okja, and he's explaining like they're gonna like kill her and make her into like steak. The thing he says is like, this is Okja's fate, and like that kind of hit me because we've kind of almost institutionalized this idea of domesticating animals.
Yeah.
And we breed them, we even like dogs, we breed them in a specific way, and we basically have no consideration of whatever they want. We're just kind of doing it for human needs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That kind of messed me up because like, yeah, if you look at history, like morality is subjective and it changes over time. And now we have this kind of elevated moral status to kind of judge, but it's kind of like messed up if you actually think about, you know, domesticated animals in general, the entire idea of it. Basically their entire purpose in life is to serve humans in whatever form.
Yeah.
That's their fate. Like that's kind of, you know, a little messed up for me.
It is
in that
messed
regard.
up, but we don't do anything for that, right?
Well,
That's the
I'd
thing.
say
That's the
nowadays,
thing, though. Like we
yeah,
know, deep
yeah.
inside, everybody knows.
That's
Like,
one thing I was actually thinking. Like, let's say I was like ALF or like I was trying to promote, you know, non like livestock for resources, but it'll be so hard because it's so accessible. It's like the one thing that's I think is so hard
yeah,
to. But nowadays they're introducing more vegan options and they have like something Impossible Burger and all this stuff. And I can kind of see in the future we'll have something like in vitro meat, which is like lab grown meat, but
Yeah,
not to the extent
I've
of
talked with
Okja.
Albert so much.
huh?
Oh yeah.
I've talked to Albert about like the possibilities of like substitute meats, like a lot. I mean, yeah, like Albert and I mean, we talked about like
Yeah, we
lab.
talked about that a lot too.
Yeah, it totally. Like I think there's a huge difference. Like when you say like we don't do any, like we know but we don't do anything about it. I like I think it's actually even like things have changed a lot in the last like 5 years. Like just the last 5 years. Like I mean, I've been vegetarian for like 6 or 7 years now.
Yeah,
And when I started, like I think there was still a general perception of vegetarianism or veganism as that like kind of stereotype of like overly moralistic or like finger wagging and like basically like I don't know, like sanctimonious vegans who like tell you that like you're a terrible person, like you know the whole like the mentality of like throwing blood on people and stuff like that.
It's super stereotypical. Like,
you're killing killing life.
Like even just in the last few years, I think there's such a shift where it's like it's not it's like it's not really it's pretty distasteful to joke about it now. It's like maybe it's just I mean I think a lot of it also just has to do with our understanding of like the climate crisis and stuff, because I think most people know by now that meat production and factory farming just like is a huge contributor to all that.
Yeah,
so it's also like even if you don't
gases.
give a shit about like animal cruelty and stuff like that, like if you believe in climate change, you're probably like you should know that there are just intense ramifications there. Like for sure, when I started versus now, like it's insane how much more like options there are.
Yeah.
But aside from just like public mentality, there's just so many more options. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wonder how different like Okja would be considered like if it came out like 10 years earlier even.
Oh man, everybody would be like, "What the fuck is this movie?"
I mean, maybe it still would have been like if you still use like like I said, like the fact that he used like a made up animal, I think made a big difference. So maybe it wouldn't have mattered, but it is essentially just like being like, hey, this is where all your guys' meat comes from. Like this is literally what happens.
Yeah.
Like no matter what.
Yeah, exactly. I would agree. I would I mean argue that if it came out earlier, the impact would definitely be a bit stronger, at least for me. Because these companies, like it shows in the film, they do amazing PR to show like, oh, we're growing all these animals in like a healthy environment, and we're treating them right, and just before they die, we're just kind of using that resource as food. Like that's kind of generally how they market themselves. So like unless you actually like think about it or see any videos of what actually happens, you kind of just don't really think about it. And that's kind of like the power of these kind of PR or image making.
Yeah.
I mean, at a certain point, like Marlboro somehow convinced people that smoking was actually healthy.
Yeah.
And like shit like that. So there's so many of these kind of like subliminal marketing or like just front like propaganda-esque marketing that's been going on for a long time.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting that you said like it's like these things are a bit more like accessible nowadays, like the other options. And that might also be because we're in kind of like in California and like the hub of kind of this almost like a second civil rights movement. And I think with that as a driving force, there's a lot more like movement to all these kind of, I would say, what used to be a lot more unpopular kind of ideas are now becoming a bit more accessible and accepting. And I think kind of California, because it's so like a melting pot, it's kind of representative of what would happen if world becomes completely global with globalization. So that's pretty interesting. Like, and I think I personally also noticed more of these kind of movements picking up and being accessible for us. So I think there's definitely change going on.
Yeah. There is. There is. I mean, but the thing is it's the price, you know. You know how Tilda Swinton is like, oh my god, they wouldn't care after
Yeah, that's a good point.
this hideous pig getting raped, you know. They wouldn't care. They'll just buy it if it's cheap.
It's cheap. Yeah, that's
You know?
Like you said.
Yeah, that's what the sister
that's like
said.
That's like a literally a direct kind of like look at the audience, right? Because it's fucking true.
Yeah, it is true. Like I still buy Tyson chicken, but I know deep inside these genetically modified chicken can't even walk because their breast is too big and they live in this like dark cage where they don't even know where they are. They just bump into each other, you know. But I still get it because it's cheap.
Yeah,
it's accessible.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this where it's like the difference is that basically once you slowly start to introduce these alternatives, the more and more, just like the more that they're bought, the more options there are, the more competition there is. Like it will slowly, like the price will slowly go down, but it just takes a long time.
Yeah, it does. It does because it's new technology.
Right? Say it again.
It involves new technology to like do this kind of thing.
The lab grown meat that is like I'm still waiting for like the truly lab grown meat where do you remember I told you about that one where it's basically like they will take the
culture they will take the cell and then culture it.
Yeah. And so it will actually be chicken.
Yeah.
It's just that you are not creating a life and then taking that life, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
You're just creating the meat.
Yeah, life as in it's not, you know, it doesn't feel pain, right? In that sense. It doesn't have a quality of life kind of thing. Yeah. It's just a cell.
Yes, yeah.
I see it becoming that. Like that would be the future if we can efficiently do that. And I think Albert's right. It'll just take a long ass time, but I feel like it would like just this idea of domesticating animals for livestock. It'll be like for future humans. It'll just be a part of history where we kind of look back and we just kind of morally frown upon. It's almost like how like before 1920 in America, like women didn't have the right to vote. Like it's just like one of those like
even
morally
in 1980s, I think they just got it.
I'm so skeptical of that because it's like it's not just about like changing attitudes in the culture, right? It's all about fucking like money. You know, it's so there are these massive corporations that there is no financial incentive for them to switch to that, and obviously the companies who are doing that lab grown meat are like a separate company.
Yeah.
And like, all these like massive conglomerates that create like literally the meat that 90 like 7% of the world eats probably.
Yeah.
Like, or at least like versus like non-meat eaters. It's like I fucking hope that, I mean, that sounds great. But I'm just, and also we're fucked. Like I also think about just how it affects climate change, and like we don't have enough time, you know.
I believe because it will be the future because of the efficiency, and that's the only reason. Like morality aside, like you said, if corporates are all obviously profit first, the actual efficiency to growing livestock is actually super trash. Like the amount of money that you give because of the water and the
water,
food that you have
food,
to give.
waste.
So actually, it makes more sense in the future if technology backs it up to do in vitro meat or use insect farms. But that's also like a different case. But that's like a reason why I think it would become kind of like more mainstream. Not necessarily like, no, they don't really care about like the morality reasons, but the efficiency, as long as it's efficient.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
all about efficiency in capitalist society or any other society because
and
everything's
I
money.
guarantee that, yeah, exactly. And they'll do the PR stunt for sure to say like, oh, do you want to save these animals? Eat our in vitro meat. So they'll have the marketing there, and then it'll just be like,
I just think like, the amount of time they would take for all those factors to align, right?
Yeah, for that shift to happen, yeah, it's gonna take a long ass time. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like for that technology to be perfected in a way that would be cheaper, that like takes a long time.
Yeah, for sure.
Scaling it, you know, and like also, yeah, like people just like who the fuck wants to eat? People who don't, you know, the majority of people do not actually even think about like the fact that like when you're saying you buy Tyson and you're like, I know that it's bad, but I just buy it because it's cheaper. I think the majority of anyone doesn't even think that.
Yeah,
that's true.
I'm eating meat. Like, shut the fuck up. Like,
I'm eating my chicken. Just leave me alone.
I have enough problems to think about.
There's not like an incentive to force that shift. It would take I mean, it could happen. It just takes so long.
Yeah, until that technology is more efficient, until it's done. Yeah, it's not gonna abolish. There's like no reason, like you said.
Yeah.
It'll
No
take a long
reason for
time,
them
but
to change right
but
now.
I do like
exactly like it, if not better.
Yeah.
Majority of, for them to choose that.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Good.
But then I do think the movie was like more of a, you know, emotional thing though. Like it focused more on the emotional part of vegetarian, being vegetarian rather than, you know, environment and all that, you know?
Yeah.
Because Okja, I think throughout the movie, she was portrayed as this smart animal. Even in the first scene, like Mija was almost dying. Huh?
Yeah.
I was thinking about that when I saw it because I like the first scene where like she even saves
Mija's life. Yeah. And
like
also,
there's a great shot where like she shows her eyes flickering between her and the branch.
Yeah.
And it's so clearly translates her intelligence.
Yeah, it does.
There's something about that is especially like, I think, I mean, it's also just like when people like debate on like the morality of killing animals, like people are like, oh well, if they don't reach a certain intelligence, which is a bullshit argument anyways, but like especially that where it's like you so like viscerally feel how she's like a sentient being because you can see how she's like calculating that and her level of intelligence.
Yeah.
I think that scene and like other scenes where just Mija and Okja communicate.
Yeah, just whispering
Like
to
whispering
Okja,
and
and she's
or
like,
like yeah.
they're playing with her in her mouth and like, you
Mhm.
know,
Mhm.
getting persimmons on the tree, the fruit.
Yeah, persimmons on the tree.
Also it was there was like an intelligence part, and the last part where Okja gets rescued by Mija basically from the slaughterhouse.
Uh-huh.
You know, there was this two pig with the
Yeah.
piglet,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
the pig threw the piglet out so that Okja can pick her up, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
as Okja leaves with the piglet, every pig
Mhm.
on the farm
Do like a
like
howl.
cries, yeah,
Like a little
does a
cry.
howl,
Mhm.
and you're
Mhm.
just like they have emotions too. Like the
Yeah.
movie was like
Mhm.
showing us that hey,
Uh-huh.
they're intelligent and they have
Mhm.
emotions. Would you still
Yeah.
eat them? That kind of message to
Yeah.
the people.
I
But in
thought
the
that
end, Nancy's right. Nancy's right. We're gonna buy it if it's cheap and
yeah.
delicious, right?
Like we'll talk about it ourselves. Like let's say we'll talk about these things today, tomorrow, but it's unlikely we'll do something like directly related to this cause, even if we feel strongly about it. It's just yeah.
Yeah.
At least for the majority of people, they might see this film and like have feelings, but it's just like how society is structured. It's kind of difficult for that change. Like you guys are
Mm,
saying, like it's just gonna take a long time for like this shift to happen that we
yeah.
want.
I think it's
Uh,
also because of a mob mentality kind of thing. You know, they're
mm,
doing it,
mm,
so why don't, you
yeah,
know,
why don't we
what's the point?
justifying it?
And then everybody
Yeah,
just does it, that kind of thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That like that just kind of also going back to like the sentient creature and like we feel that like relationship to it because like we might think of like our dog, let's say,
Yeah.
that can communicate with us. And um I was curious like if it was like the opposite, like what if it's Okja was completely unintelligent, like would this work? Because I only say this because like Brandon kind of mentioned also like sometimes people judge value in creatures by their intelligence,
Yeah.
but it's like bullshit. I agree because like even humans, we have people who are under average intelligence, and we consider them to be still be
Humans.
humans and give them
Yeah.
rights. But why not these creatures? And like
Yeah.
Peter Singer in his book Animal Liberation says like the same thing. I think his argument there is like as long as this creature can suffer or have the capability to, we should expand these laws into their conditions and
Yeah.
their situations. So it's yeah, like it's kind of like I feel like Bong was definitely trying to send a message, and he purposely made Okja like intelligent.
Yeah.
But if he didn't do that, like would it have an effect, and would his like message even
Yeah.
work?
I think
Like he
emotionally
had.
it wouldn't resonate as much,
No, it
Hmm.
wouldn't.
Hmm.
but it
Yeah.
doesn't mean that he's like, yeah, I think as a storytelling like necessity,
Yeah, it
Mm,
was.
mm-hmm.
I get it, you know.
Yeah, for
It
sure.
was a device for him to say, you know, they matter kind of thing.
Yeah, I totally felt the same way.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. I remember like when I
Mm-hmm.
um, like exactly what you're saying, Yoon. It's like I remember when I like right around when I became vegetarian, I actually happened to take a class at UCSD, and like there was that specific argument about like
Mm-hmm.
um about a certain like threshold of intelligence, and that's what justifies
Mm-hmm.
killing animals or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, I distinctly remember like one of the arguments was basically like kind of like what you're saying, but like I guess in a more extreme way, it's basically like, would you
Mm-hmm.
be okay with like, us just straight up killing people who are mentally handicapped or like mentally disabled. Like, no, that's insane. Like anybody would be like, you're fucking crazy. If anything, you would feel more remorse about a situation.
Exactly.
So yeah, like totally. I just happened. I remember that was like a like a specific like logic that didn't make sense, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, I know the best justification for this, man. Because God told us so, man. It's in the Bible, dude. The Bible says we're
the entire concept that humans are like the center of the Earth or universe is so bullshit if you look at it. At
God
least
told us we can do whatever.
Historically. Doesn't make sense.
It's also like I think that like I've talked about this with Smith where it's like there is a of course like an evolutionary necessity to killing animals to feed yourself, right? Like that was a necessity for thousands and thousands, I mean even longer than that, right? For like
for human life, dude, human history,
for survival.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like there is nothing that like morally should necessitate like
survival.
The kind of like factory level of like meat production and
that
kind of stuff, right? Where that's like, I mean, sure, I guess you could introduce the argument that also there are just like tons of people in the world who are like of a certain means and they need to be fed, and that's a different. I guess that's where it gets kind of complicated, but yeah, like I think that like ironically, when I've heard like people who hunt talk about that process, I'm like, not that I like advocate hunting or anything like that, but the way that they actually talk about that process has a much, and I think this applies to a lot of hunters, like people, like it's basically like there is a different level of connection and respect to what you are consuming because you went through that process in like almost a
direct
basic, like primal form, right? Like you sat in the fucking wild for hours, you killed the thing, you skinned it, like there's a different level like respect for what you're doing, right? Like you know the dynamic there, and you're also seeing like the direct consequence of what you did, right? And there's also just like a different level of pain and cruelty that's involved, right? It's they're shot and they're killed and they die like almost instantaneously.
I kind of want to add on Brandon's thought where you know I just want to give you an example, you know, like I do think this kind of argument is uprising because we're the confused generation where everything happens so fast and we saw the possibility of science and all that. But like my grandpa, right? One day I went to my grandpa's house and the dog was gone, right? And I was like, where's the dog? Like, I want to play with the dog. And he's like, you ate it. I'm like, what the fuck? You know, like he cooked the dog, basically. For them, it just doesn't come to their mind. Like, as in, like, his generation was starved so hard. Like, Japanese came, and then there was Korean War. They had nothing to eat for like half of their lives, basically. And they just don't think about it. But us, we saw this like massive farming happening, you know, and food is abundant, and like, and we just think like, what if it gets better? That kind of shit, you know. It's like it's like you know, people who eat for necessity, like in that era, like they don't have time to think about this kind of thing. You know, they just think, oh, that's food. Like, why are you making a fuss about it? But for us, it's just like does it have a better choice? That kind of thing, you know? Like the thought arises where, you know, it might be possible. That kind of thing, you know?
Yeah. So that's interesting because like in the end it's still like purpose for humans. Like we're still the top in that sense.
Yeah.
Like inevitably, I guess, for survival. But yeah, like morality changes as time goes, and I guess we're at a point where we can kind of you know, actually change this mindset. I think that's what's important. Like even killing humans, that was like very common, like just a couple thousand years ago, like pil pil uh pilgriming or just what do you call it? Pilgrimage? Like
What?
yaktar?
Pillaging?
Uh yeah, pillaging, sorry. Pillaging like different villages and like killing people and like stealing like all their goods, killing like all that stuff is just like morally you could kind of argue at that specific time frame it's somewhat like natural, but like I think we've at least definitely come to a point where like Brandon said, like this entire factorization of all these livestock is something we actually think about morally, and we
Yeah.
can kind of at least have these other options to do it. So
Yeah, but then
uh,
it's I mean,
yeah, it's like that
uh
circle argument. Like it's never gonna happen with these
it's
industries.
our society is kind of built upon this like zero sum game kind of thought, you know, like if I
Mm-hmm.
lose, they win. If I win, they lose, that kind of thing, you know, where, you know, if I don't do this, what they're
Mm-hmm.
doing, I lose and they win
Mm-hmm.
more. That kind
Mm-hmm.
of mentality where
Basically,
competition.
capitalism you're talking about,
I mean, yeah,
competitive
yeah, yeah,
advantages.
that too. I mean,
Yeah.
capitalism is built upon the idea of free market
Mm-hmm.
where everybody just competes and,
Right.
you know, try to develop more
Uh-huh.
so that they can compete better,
Right.
right?
Right.
But that's in everybody's mind, you know.
Yeah.
Why
Mm-hmm.
would I buy like this free range chicken egg when I can buy this egg for like $1 instead of
Yeah.
10, you
Yeah.
know?
Mm-hmm.
It's 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 hard. It's hard.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's hard. It's really hard
Yeah.
for us to do that,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, the good thing is at least it is something like we're considering now. Like before, no one really thought about any of this
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
At
yeah.
least the majority of people. But no, with the device of this movie itself as well, I'm sure more and more people are like at least thinking about these things,
Mm,
and that right there, I feel like is a catalyst for change. Just get people to
yeah.
talk about it, think about it, and compare that to the past. I think that's the general step. So I think, at least heading in the right direction.
Oh,
Um,
and one other thing that I liked about the movie is like,
mhm.
you know, the character, Mija and the grandpa, Mija and
Uh-huh.
the Miranda core, you know, they contrast, you know. Mija's like the idealist where, you know,
Mm.
it's my
Mhm.
friend. Like why would you kill my friend? You know,
Mhm.
we were like that at one point, but we
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
turned into his grandpa, her grandpa, basically. Like
Mhm.
we were
More
chasing
realistic.
money, you
Yeah.
know, like we're just doing whatever we can to live, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, like, yeah, you could argue for the grandpa, it was his interest to take care of Mija in the best way possible, and
yeah,
he didn't have any money, so that's kind of the thing that probably motivated him to take part in the project. So,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, like obviously idealistic motives and like the realistic life they clash sometimes, and yeah, I think that's a good point that they're kind of represented by these characters.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yeah, I
it's kind of
definitely
yeah.
feel.
Sorry.
Huh? You cut
Yeah,
out for a
Brandon.
sec.
No, go ahead.
No, no, no. You
Oh,
go
I
ahead.
think we cut you off.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're about to
I was
say.
saying I definitely feel this lately, where it's like
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, um, I mean, I felt it for a while, I guess, but like especially just in the last everything that's gone on this year, where it's like
Mm-hmm.
you're so, I certainly am so disgusted by capitalism and like the like I don't know, like it feels like everything you do is in some way a product of like some terrible, like egregious, like morally.
I mean, in defense of capitalism, though, like it was built upon like a good motive, though. Like it's in like everybody competes and
Yeah, but that doesn't matter.
invisible hand helps you to get better.
I mean, everything evil was everything that's ever been evil was believed to be built on a righteous motive by the person who fucking set the wheels in motion, right? I mean, I don't know.
Who used it?
It's clear that it's not.
Yeah. I mean, Marxism was like a good idea. We're like, oh, we should all live together in a good utopia. But like, the leaders who used it,
like certain levels of like what we've. I mean, everyone is always calling it late stage capitalism, but it's like there are certain levels of it that we've reached where it's like, dude, this is like absurd. The amount of like
amount of what
there is, and like basically, I mean, I guess what I was trying to say was just that like you said, like the like coming whatever you want to do and like however you want to be right in this world, like you ultimately still just have to like live your life, and like there's only certain ways you can be realistic about it. And I definitely feel that a lot, where it's like, you know, that they're like, for example, like I know that it's terrible to like I know that Amazon is terrible, and like I know that Jeff Bezos is terrible, and like I've tried to like basically not buy from Amazon, but a couple times here and there I've ultimately bought from Amazon, and it's like
it's so easy
resignation to it all, you know.
It's that's so convenient. That's exactly what's happening everywhere.
I know it, but it's like, what can we fucking do?
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, capitalism with like
zero-sum game, dude.
Yeah, it
you
doesn't
lose.
And there's just no option, right? Like
there's no better option.
Yeah,
that's
there's no
better
option. So we're kind of that's like it's almost like structured in this way from the start, obviously. But it's hard to go against it, and capitalism in an economic standpoint makes perfect sense. But yeah, like morality wise, like they jump through so many loopholes and do a lot of messed up things, and like it's just hard for us people to like stand against those like corporations or anything. So it's like like one person can like boycott like Amazon, but like in the end
who's
Amazon
gonna not use it though?
It's become a certain point.
I mean, Jeff Bezos kind of does his PR pretty well though. Like, oh, I'm doing space program too, and like, oh, I love my mother. That kind of shit, you know.
I don't know about well, but
I've seen those commercials lately where it's like they are like filming Amazon workers or people who work in Amazon warehouses and being like, I love my job, and they're like, my kid sees me and they're like, that's mommy, and like like, so it makes me feel so sick to my fucking stomach. Because it's also specifically capitalizing on like the sort of COVID stuff.
Yeah.
You know.
The frontline workers.
Yeah, they do. And like those movements, like you're talking about, with like Black Lives Matter, that has been like almost a trend in Silicon Valley. It's like it makes sense for some of these companies because they're global and they want to be as you know, what would you say, like I don't want to use like more global in that sense. But there's like always this kind of underlying corporate like purpose for everything. And you can see that. That's yeah.
Well, did you like? I don't know what. How do you see it? Like, what kinds of things are they doing or saying?
I think it depends on like how they they kind of present it. But at least from what I've seen in certain companies, is they've done somewhat of a good job, at least, of trying to educate people at least what's going on, and they have these kind of like not like these kind of educational, like not quizzes, but like things that you kind of go through, and it explains like different situations, and like
Correct.
why you should think this way, like what's morally acceptable, and like how to be unbiased. Like I think that's good,
Bias
but
training or
yeah,
something.
but like I don't like it when they do PR for acting, but I think internally, if it's something like you're just educating your employees, I think that's actually pretty good. But once
Yeah.
you do like PR, like, oh yeah, Amazon is like all about this movement, and if we have like deals if you purchase at this time, it's like when I see that, that's kind of messed up. Yeah, it's like taking advantage of some kind of movement that's trying to do something morally good, and yeah, abusing that, exploiting that. It's terrible.
Yeah, and I think like certain versions of that. I mean, I guess that's sort of like the good that's happening out of the George Floyd protests. Like now, it's like
Mhm.
every industry is in some way needing to like confront. Like fucking every company
Yeah, every company.
is
Yeah.
basically forced to confront this type of stuff. And
Uh-huh.
like in my work, it's interesting because
Mhm.
it's like I get what you're saying with tech companies, where it's like it's just like it just feels kind of like
Mhm.
obviously like disingenuous and fake when
Mhm.
they're literally trying to like broadcast to the world that like,
Yeah.
oh, you're a progressive or
Oh,
whatever.
we
But like
care.
in my world, it's different with like
Uh-huh.
um, publishing and media and stuff, because a lot of these places are
Mhm.
their brand was already built on the idea that they were like
Mm.
progressive and
Mhm.
woke and
Mhm.
like
Mm.
were voices for a certain kind of like
Mhm.
progressive politics. So it's like really interesting because they're specifically being called out and like outed for like the very opposite of what their whole like identity is, kind of like, because a lot of these places like
Mhm.
just like editors and like
Mhm.
I like do you guys watch like, I mean this is sort of related, but like do you guys watch like Bon Appetit on YouTube and stuff?
No.
So like they're just like a huge um
Mhm.
and they're a magazine that's been around for decades,
Mm.
Mhm.
like a food magazine, but they have this huge online presence that they built on YouTube,
Mhm.
uh, and like they're basically like kind of crumbling from within because people were calling out how like first off like the editor in chief of Bon Appetit like basically did like brown face at some point, and like one of the people who's like one of the cast, I guess if you want to call it cast, like was
Mhm.
like this um brown woman who basically like wasn't getting paid for her appearances while all the white people were. And it's just like it's
Oh,
just interesting.
wow.
It's like
Mm.
a specifically like a public facing brand that like clearly is of like a, you know, just like New York City publishing and New York City media. It's like
Uh-huh.
already kind of assume that they're very like progressive and woke.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
it's interesting to see them like completely imploding now
Interesting.
because of
Uh-huh.
like all the call outs from within
Uh-huh.
The
through like the after.
two-sidedness, man. Two-sidedness of everything.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
flip a
Yeah.
coin and there's a different side, dude.
That's yeah. But
It's
yeah, that's the crazy thing. Like some of these companies like purposely target these audiences for like a progressive side, and they might not even agree with ideas, but it's just,
I mean,
they
they
have an audience.
I think a lot of them don't even know. They don't even know that they are like
Uh-huh.
that they don't actually um,
Like right or
embody
uh-huh.
the things that they act like they do.
Yeah,
mm,
that's pretty crazy to think about.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like in media, it's
Yeah.
different because I mean, I guess we're getting off track. Like in media, it's just different because
Mhm.
many of them are they think that they're like woke, but they fundamentally come from like a
Mhm.
upper class white elite
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, but
society.
then I do think it's still a win though if they start doing that because like that's what the movement was for, right?
No,
To
no, no. Like
make everybody know.
happening right now is important. Like it's good.
Yeah.
Like these people should be called out, and we should have like this sort of reckoning. Like I think it's great. But I also see like what Yoon's saying, where it's like, especially if you're like an employee at that company, if they are like what's happening with over there, that's like very different, right? Because no one's being like punished. They're basically just trying to be like, see, we know what's going on. Racism is bad. And it's like, it's just very like, it just is bullshit.
Yeah.
It's just optics.
Yeah. I mean, hypocrisy is worse than, genuine motives, but, I do think it's still a win in some sense. And, it's better if they did more than just PR and like, oh, we care. But, it's still a step forward.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, I think overall everything that's happening is like huge. It's like really, it's like completely unprecedented.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like people make parallels to like 92 LA riots of like kind of a mini civil rights movement at that time. Like I think up till then and now, like things have been kind of pretty intense as it is, and like these kind of movements to represent like LGBT, let's say, and all these, what I would say, like minor in the sense of like in comparison, in what do you call it, the opposite of just the majority, like these groups are getting more of their
Minorities?
voices heard. I mean, I have other thoughts of why that's happening, but I think it's just important that at least people are like focused on it, and like regardless of kind of the motive at the time, at this time at least, more people like think about it and talk about it. I think that's exactly kind of what brings about change. So in the end, like I kind of agree with Alberto. Like it's at least important that these things are a bit more,
I guess it's
not mainstream, but
exposed.
like exposed. I guess that's a
I mean, that's what I'd say is crazy, is that it is mainstream. Is that like you can't avoid it. Like
No.
in some way, it's probably
Uh-huh.
something that is like, it's been a topic of conversation, or something that you've had to like confront, like in some corner of your life, regardless of who you are in America. Like chances are you've had to, like, even if not like literally someone's testing you, but like for example, at your company, like the fact that they just feel the need to
exactly
it is a huge deal, because you're like, if you work for a tech company, like theoretically it's like, how would this have anything to do with me or our company or right?
Like,
and it's crazy.
What are you gonna
like,
code? Like,
and it's like, it's that there still is a need to do that, It's great.
Yeah, it's just, anyway, we digress, dude. We digress.
We went really far
off. Yeah, I mean,
I had like
go ahead.
I was just like maybe tying back to the film. I had like one thing about like just the patterns in Bong's movies, and in Korea we call Bong Joon-ho, the director, like Bong Tail, and it's like it just means like Bong Joon-ho detail, like a shortened version of that. And I just noticed certain details in this film, Okja, that was interesting. Like Mija whispering to Okja, and then Okja whispers back at the end, like, "What did they say?" Like, and then there's also this one scene that kind of like was interesting to me, probably, but like Gus Fring, I don't know his character's name, but Gus Fring basically makes coffee in like the middle of like or what's this? The younger sister's name? Nancy's sister, the younger sister.
Lucy?
Yeah, Lucy. Yeah, Lucy's having like that mental breakdown, right?
Yeah.
Because of that incident where like the pig got loose and it's all over the news.
Yeah.
It's so weird because Gus Fring just gets up, makes coffee, and he says something like, "Why don't we just use the little girl as PR?"
Yeah,
And then
he just like, you were
immediately,
thinking that using girl as a PR, right? And she's like,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah, that's so weird because I guess like what it actually was is just showing the power of Gus Fring. Like he's kind of
Yeah,
shown to be like
he's the
the
main
highest.
head.
Yeah, he's like the main head. But like what I kind of interpreted at the time of watching it, it's like I thought he like hypnotized Lucy, and like the sequence of ordering of how he makes the coffee is like what triggers it to her to be like on, like hypnotized on.
Oh, you think so? I didn't think
Yeah,
it
yeah,
that
no,
way. I think it
yeah,
was
that's
more like a description where, I'm the cool guy.
yeah,
Listen to me.
that's probably what it was. But I like to think the other way, just because like if you watch it again, maybe you'll get kind of like what I'm talking about. Like when he does that sequence, it was just so off-putting at the time. Um, it just like I like to have that like side story I just created, and I think that's cool about Bong's movies. Like he puts all these like subtle details,
Yeah.
kind of like it seems random, but like they're kind of like jigsaw pieces where you can
Mm,
kind of fit your own story in whatever way. So he does that kind of like pretty well in his other films. Like Parasite's a good example where he has a ton of those. And like if you look at YouTube, there's like thousands of like, oh, what's the meaning behind this part and that part? And
mm,
yeah, this for this movie, this was it. Like that Gus Fring scene where he
mm.
just like makes coffee is probably like hypnotizing Lucy.
That's an interesting approach, dude. I never thought
Yeah,
about that.
I
What were you saying, Brandon?
No, I just said that's an interesting interpretation.
Yeah, hypnotizing Lucy. Oh
yeah,
man,
that's
I when I saw that scene, I was just like
yeah.
thinking about this like 1980s guy being cool, like oh drinking
Uh,
whiskey. Why don't we do
uh-huh.
this?
Yeah, I thought it
That
was
kind of
just kind
thing.
of like
Yeah. That's probably what it was, but yeah, I
Oh
like to
man,
overinterpret it, all of those little details. It's yeah. Like what
man.
did Mija say to Okja? Like I'm so curious.
Yeah, that I'm really curious, man.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, Okja was it was a fun movie to watch. I watched it twice, and
Hmm.
man, it was
Yeah,
so
you
good the
you
second time.
uh-huh. Yeah, you said you concentrated on like different parts on your second
Yeah,
viewing.
that's what I do most of the time when I watch like
Hmm.
movies the second time, I
Uh-huh.
first I
Like you
just
know the
focus
story
on
and
the
everything.
main
Uh-huh.
story, the story
Hmm.
flow, what the main character is like trying to do. But
Hmm.
second time I focus on like, oh, like why is this actually happening? Like what's the meaning behind this kind of act? What is this
Mm.
character trying to do or portray in this movie? That kind
Hmm.
of details,
Did
And
you pick up? Yeah.
yeah, I picked up some, Nancy and Lucy is like they're twins, right? And they're like
Hmm.
one is trying to be good, one is trying to be, you know, this corporate head where trying to make money only.
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
two-sidedness of PR. I think that's what Bong was trying to say. Like, oh, behind this PR, there's always this motive where they're trying to make
Hmm.
something happen.
Yeah.
I think that's why the CEO was
Hmm.
twin. You know,
Yeah, that's a
Even
good
even
point.
Nancy was like the bad one. Was like,
Hmm.
it's okay. I'll just make a speech acting like Lucy. You know,
Hmm. Hmm.
like was
I don't remember. Is it the exact same? Like,
it's
is it
both
just?
Tilda Swinton
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah, they look exactly the same.
because
Like
Yeah.
it's both Tilda
obviously
Swinton.
twins. Yeah. Well, like I mean, like they could have put like some kind of differences in like let's say like attire or like weight or something like that. But
Yeah.
they just like look exactly the same.
Yeah, and also the other part when I was like, oh shit, that's why, when
Uh-huh.
I watched it the second time, there
Uh-huh.
was a scene where Lucy is trying to like the next day she's doing the parade, right? And
Yeah.
then and then the evil sister sends
Yeah.
her a
A painting.
drawing
Yeah.
of her, of
Uh-huh.
Lucy, right? And saying, "Oh, I sent you a picture of the best CEO of this company." And
Right.
at first I was like, "Huh,
Mm-hmm.
what she's being nice, but why
Yeah,
is
nice
why is
sister.
this girl so mad about this? And then I see the twin, you know, and I'm like, oh, that's why. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I gotta say, Tilda Swinton plays like this bitchy role so well. Like
Yeah,
I
she
love her. Like
does.
when she, same with like Snowpiercer.
No piercer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing. Like the other film I saw her is Constantine, where she plays like this
Yeah, this
naive, like pure
angel.
angel.
Yeah. She's so bitchy in that. And even in Doctor Strange, she's kind of bitchy
Oh
too.
yeah. She's a
She's like,
little
"Oh, you don't know
bitchy.
shit." "Oh, really? Okay, let me show you." And then she's like, "Get out."
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
it's pretty
it's
good.
important that you mentioned that they're twins, kind of maybe on purpose, and like goes
Yeah,
back to what you said. It's like a portrayal of us and duality of
the duality
our
of,
consciousness.
yeah,
Yeah,
you know, the
that's a good
hypocrisy
point.
we always
Yeah, the
make.
hypocrisy. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Every character, man, every character Bong makes. It's always like that, dude.
Yeah.
Always. Always focuses on duality.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't seen enough of his stuff, but it'd be interesting if that's like a thread throughout all this work.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Do you guys have other like main topics to
About
like you
Okja?
wanted to talk about?
Hmm.
No, but you guys should just become vegetarian.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even the
I
audience, dude, duality. They watch the
yeah.
movie and I'm like, oh, Okja, no, and then they go
Yeah.
back to eating burgers.
I was eating like I was watching last night and I was eating like Chipotle. And like I was eating a chicken burrito, but I was like, damn. I was
Damn,
like, damn.
Okja.
I felt terrible,
Terrible, but still eating.
but still eating. That's that's the
Yeah.
duality that I guess Bong's trying to illustrate.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest though, like vegetarian food is not like special food either. It's just,
Yeah,
it's still tasty. You still eat veggies and like cheese and all that,
yeah.
right?
Since
Egg.
we all went to UCSD, there's that place in Mir, right? Like Roots, I think.
Yeah, Roots is a
Yeah, I love that
vegetarian one.
place. And I don't know. I think when I eat like vegetarian or like I just feel healthier. Maybe that's just me and
Yeah.
my biology, but it's like
Too, especially.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
like there's a
and
study like yeah,
study about what?
it's like beans as like the protein alternative is actually healthy anyway. So
Yeah.
I was thinking about and yeah, I keep
Dude,
talking about insect farms, but like
the
I'm
insect
like
farm
kind of
is
an
actually like a good idea in like a
uh-huh.
efficiency way, but like who's
But they
gonna eat
also
it?
feel suffering. That's the thing. That's why I was like, hmm. Plants as well, though, if you think about it,
Yeah,
they
what if
definitely
they
feel
say,
pain.
oh, they feel
Huh?
pain. The
What if what?
beans feel pain.
I mean,
And what are we gonna do, man?
yeah, what do we eat? We just eat like lab shit. Then
We
that's the
just
thing.
eat the thing from the Matrix, dude. Those white fucking oatmeal looking thing. Oh man.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, I don't know. Like I do think being vegetarian is like a appealing thing to do for me
Mm-hmm.
too, but
Yeah.
it's just
His
like
with. Uh-huh.
sometimes you want bacon, that kind of thing, you know? It's just like you just can't resist it. You
You can't
smell
resist.
bacon and you're just like,
Alright.
oh, my mouth is watering right now thinking about bacon. You know? It's just
Yeah, I
it's
think
this
in our
human
generation,
impulse. You
it's
just
just
like,
too hard, maybe.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like
Maybe on
crack,
future
dude.
generations it's easier. It's
Yeah.
like crack, you said?
Yeah. It's like sometimes you gotta have it. It's
Yeah,
just,
there's people who never had it, but there's no one that had it once. That kind of
yeah.
thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Gotta go to Veggie Grill again now, man.
Dude, Veggie Grill is bomb,
Veggie
dude.
Grill? Yeah.
They do veggie meats. It doesn't taste like meat, but it still tastes so good.
Honestly, I'm actually curious now if they have like different options, because I mean it's been a long time since we've gone, and like there's way.
They change dishes though, like every month or so.
Like, it's just interesting because I like even just in the last couple of years, like the kinds of substitute meats. There's like been so much more. There's just been like such an evolution of it. So I wonder if it would be different now.
Yeah.
If we went again. I mean, I don't know how it would go again, but
is that kind of like a chain or like a local?
It's kind of a chain. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was in
UTC.
Yeah, UTC.
Oh, UTC. Oh.
Yeah, me and Brandon always went there. Like every time he comes, or every time we're like, we gotta go Veggie Grill. Dude, even in TapX, dude, we get what is it, fried tofu? Oh shit, with ranch, dude. Oh man, so good.
Skip the chicken, yeah.
Yeah, that was the bomb.
No, not fried chicken, dude. Fried tofu, man.
Yeah, I said you skipped the chicken.
Yeah, fried tofu. It was like $10.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
No,
there's no way it's $10. Yeah, there's no way.
It's probably the making cost is probably like less than $2, but whatever, man.
Yeah,
I'm not cooking it. Yeah, it was pretty good.
Yeah, I definitely noticed more vegan places popping up too. And they're pretty good. Like I had like fake fish once.
Fake fish?
Like yeah, there's this like place in Pleasanton. It's something basil. It's like the best vegan place I've ever been to, but they have like fake fish, fake beef, fake every meat. And they're like all like I guess like bean based.
Probably.
But it tastes so good because it's like it kind of like the protein taste obviously kind of reminds you of meat, but it's like much lighter and you just feel like a bit healthier. Maybe that's placebo, but I always feel good after. Completely digressing, but yeah, I love those.
Hey, if you think about it, beer is also vegan, dude. A lot of great vegan stuff. All the liquor, vegan. Unless you put a cobra in it.
Is that a like completely Eastern thing though? To put like
Cobra,
basically
snake oil and shit.
Marinate animals and with like alcohol and like.
I think it's like East Asia kind of thing.
Like bees and stuff. Like they put hornets and honey.
Yeah. Oh, it's good for your health.
That's only non-vegan alcohol, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, Okja was a great movie to watch.
That was good shit. I mean, I'm definitely down to try Memories of Murder.
Memories of Murder.